Okay, I'd like to call the Municipal Services and Utility Committee to order, please. Roll call.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Here.
Ron Dunwoody,
Here.
Carol Young.
Okay, we're here to discuss the uh, residential solid waste collection and recycling RFP. Matt, do you want to take us through some of the questions or statements that you have regarding this?
Sure. Mike, am I on mic now? Okay. Um, Well, our existing contract with Advanced was for 8 years. As a part of this RFP, I proposed two timeframes, either a 3-year or a 5-year. Can certainly consider any timeframe that the council would like to. At the back, I kind of somewhat the guts of it, where it talks about bid form A, where it's for garbage once a week inside a container, the wheeled container, which is either a 96-gallon tote. I've also incorporated an option for a 65-gallon tote, or bin, or wheeled cart rather, not a tote. So that in case if you don't want a super big one, you want a smaller one, that's an option as well. And then same thing for recycling, the way that we currently have it, which is once every 2 weeks or every other week. Then I also did an option B2 where it's single stream recycling, same thing in a wheeled cart weekly. Because I think with the times we're in, and we've all seen it, where you've seen boxes next to the wheeled cart. I think 2 weeks is kind of getting to be a long time. So I think it's worth at least getting a price to have weekly collection was my thought. I thought we should do a pre-bid meeting for this project. I think that's a good idea to get in front of all the bidders, to answer any questions before we open. Kind of in the middle of it here, I did change some things. After I'd sent this out, there was a review done by, Lacey did a review, and I appreciate that, and Joel took a look at it as well, and there's a couple of small corrections. I don't know if I need to go through those. Some of the bigger ones is the hours and location. I did adjust the hours that were in here. I had the contractor able to start at 6 a.m. We adjusted that to say 7 a.m. I added Harris Park in here for dumpster and trash recyclable collection because I had missed that one on the list. I also included in here to include 40-yard roll-off dumpsters at our compost site for yard wastes. So again, this is kind of just a starting point. We could certainly look to add or remove anything. I did have LRS, the gal that had stopped by, Susan. She had stopped by during a public and had commented at one of our council meetings. She did take a look at it. It's public information, obviously, and she had some comments. One of the things that we have in there under bulk items, I currently have in this RFP 2 requests per month would be allowed. She said that they would supply that information, obviously, if we wanted to, but she said it is going to get to be costly. Typically, it's once per month is what most communities are doing, 1 item per month. If you want to have an extra item per month, they will pick that up. You just have to contact them directly, and there's a fee for that, and they would let us know what the fee is, and the resident would just have to pay for that extra pickup themselves prior to the item actually being picked up. So I thought that seemed reasonable. The electronic waste and liquid waste, I know we don't currently have liquid waste, although it kind of sometimes would get picked up. Scott, I think you remember that. We didn't necessarily have in the contract, but they were taking it. This is something that it was suggested to do like a biannual or maybe once per year if we thought that that was more acceptable or a better route to go. One thing to consider, I mean, Walworth County does do them twice a year, so again, we could maybe do this to where it's an option. It's a separate alternate. Whether the city chooses to go with it or not could be up to, obviously, the city, the council. I do think that this is something that's probably eventually going to go away to where you're not going to get these larger contractors to pick up e-waste and liquid waste. So, that's another option is if you provide it, and if you are going to provide it and it's eventually going to go away, it's going to be hard for people to want to lose that. So it's just something to consider. I did have in here a tagging system, so if there are issues, they should let the resident know. One of the other items that Susan had mentioned was the proposed daily routes for collection. If that's something that she said it's typically not something that you'd see at the RFP stage. That would be something that would be looked at more as we get closer to actually awarding a contract and actually setting up a contract. You know, if we don't think that they need to go through that effort right now, obviously it needs to be collected weekly. But it's very possible that they could come up with a different collection route too, unless we want to specifically say you have to adopt the one that we currently have, if we think that would be confusing. But I think, my opinion, if they want to switch it up, I think that's okay. However they could best pick up for collection, I think would be in the city's best interest. Those are kind of the highlights that I had in here. We can go over any of the contract language, or obviously it's 26 pages, so there's quite a bit that goes into it. But as far as the service level, that's really what I wanted to discuss.
Committee, any comments on anything?
No, I think very comprehensive.
Well, I have some stuff.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I have some stuff.
Okay, great, perfect.
Oh, no. Well, first of all, you answered the can sizes, so I know Frank was concerned about that as well. So thank you for that. I think one of the things we need to really stress this time is equipment maintenance. I just walking through my new roads there in Green Acres, having streams of hydraulic fluid, waste, et cetera, after the garbage trucks come through is unacceptable. Where they talk about, in your RFP is talking about having sealed trucks. We need to make sure that actually happens. And how are they going to know that they're leaking? Is someone actually looking out the back window, or is it going to be when we're all calling and complaining? That's a big concern for me and some of the folks that I live around. Electronic waste we just kind of talked about. The other thing that you mentioned in the contract is timely cleanup. Again, how are they going to know? And accountability. We need to put something in here about accountability. I know a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, there was a big discussion about the performance of the garbage company, but we didn't have any teeth in the contract. We need to have something reasonable that, one, we don't want to drive people away, but also understand that we're not going to just be pushed around. Just because we're the government doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. We're the customer. So we need to make sure we have something in there on that, in my opinion. And then about the communication, making sure it's effective, available, and transparent to DPW, as I know some of your frustrations were they were not getting a hold of you and you couldn't get a hold of them. Basically, the hotline. So when you get those calls, you're actually able to get a hold of somebody. I think that's important. And we need to make sure we have someone that's an effective partner with us. So far, from what I've seen as a resident and on the council, is that we don't have that currently. And let's see, make sure our services are outlined, operating costs such as fuel. So if they're putting in their RFP what the fuel range is, that they're going to have the price, so we don't get blindsided. And if it goes up or goes down, so if it goes down, heaven forbid, we actually get money back. So those types of things we should probably have built in there somewhere. Yeah, that covers it. So,
For the sake of the RFP, I mean, I did have a section in there that you noted where I talked about the vehicle and equipment, and they shall furnish a complete list. Should be kept in good working condition. Did you want to add any? I mean, right now we're at the proposal stage of it. Did you think that you wanted to see anything else in here specific to the items that you mentioned?
I think we almost have to have that in bold to make sure it's understood that they don't gloss it over. There's too many places on the street. It was glass where we had to send out the sweeper, cleaning stuff up, and we shouldn't have to do that.
Okay.
So make sure that they understand it. Look, this is for real. This isn't just a pencil whip operation. These are the expectations.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Could I ask?
Absolutely.
I was wondering, is it in there, so like if somebody has an extra bag or two that is sitting next to them, will they pick that up? Or is it just what's in the,
Just what's in the wheeled cart?
is there anything we can do about that? Because, I mean, a lot of people, you get Christmas time, you get extra boxes and stuff. People move. I mean, is that considered they got a call for a bulk thing if they move and the whole curb's full?
Well, you could,
I mean, years ago, they would get out of the truck and throw all that stuff in.
yeah, and you can go to that service. It's just gonna be a different pay structure. Yeah, it's gonna cost you a little bit more, but there's other
Yeah.
communities that are still that way. I mean, most places, most companies are moving to automated because of all the insurance claims and people getting hurt. But I know there's some around here that still do whatever you put out, they'll take.
And I think we should maybe have that in there, and at least they could bid on it, and we can decide as a council if it's cost too much or cost effective, because, I mean, I've heard that complaint from people, hey, we got an extra bag, we put an extra thing, and then it sits there. Well, now you put it in for the next week, and you got so many bags, where do you ever get rid of that extra bag, or two, or three, or? So I think it
You
should,
shouldn't have to play the game to get it,
No,
you shouldn't.
you should, it should be
No.
cut and dry.
Tom's out of town this week, so I'll put it in.
yeah, but I think we should have something in there, it's up to you guys, but something should be in there at least that they can tell us what it's gonna cost extra, if anything.
That's one of the options.
I think that eventually that service will go away. That's just my gut feeling, is that you'll probably end up seeing more automated services just because of the insurance claims. That's my gut. So
Right now, they don't pick it up unless it's actually in the bin.
Right.
And there are people that literally make literally like a pyramid, the door's open and then there's all this garbage stacked way high. Well,
That's
it's
why-
in the bin, well,
And
that's
that's why
great
it's
until the
blowing
wind
around.
Exactly,
But
the wind picks up.
if that falls off, they do not get out and pick it up.
And-
I've had numerous cases
And
with
I
that
know it's
happening.
supposed to be, the lid's supposed to be able to be closed.
Right, the lid's supposed to be closed, yeah.
What, question, Matt, what size containers are we using now?
currently,
Yes.
96.
They are the 96,
Yeah.
okay.
What would it take to ask for an extra container?
Get 65s too. Yeah, they
So-
do. The majority of them are 96. There are some 65s that they
The
allow.
children
Yes,
have that,
yeah.
Right,
So what if a household has 5 kids, like I did a long time ago, wants 2 cans for garbage?
Probably have to pay for it.
Right, so.
And I'll let Adam or maybe Corey speak to the challenges of how do we, billing wise, handle something like that? Because right now it's, the way that everybody would pay for that service then, so.
That was kind of along the lines of the question I was going to ask is if, I remember many, many years ago, I don't know how many of you were on council at the time, but we had a conversation about, there were some people that were elderly or they were single family, literally only just one person in their house, and that 96 gallon container was just too large for them. Do some of you guys remember this conversation?
Remember
Yeah, so if we go to this new system, are we going to, my assumption would be the default is everyone remains status quo. However, if there are people out there that say a 96 is just too cumbersome for me, can I get a 65? The answer is yes, but I assume they pay the same amount as someone who has a 96. You're not getting any kind of like, oh, I'm saving $1 a month than my neighbor Robbie who has a 96 or whatever. It's gonna be just a flat fee, correct?
That's what I would propose.
That's what I would too, because I think it would be a nightmare for you guys to keep track of.
that's what it is now, because
Right.
where I'm at, in those condos, there's a lot of elderly people,
Right.
and we have to keep them in the garage. So we all, I think 90% of us have the smaller cans. So,
Yeah, and I would be very interested to see what would be the cost differential, obviously, with having recycling every week versus every other week.
Keep the alternate in there as
I would say, yeah, I would like to see them both.
Right.
And, I mean, it might be astronomical. I mean, they're gonna stop twice, they're gonna stop twice as much every week, 52 weeks out of the year. I can't imagine that's gonna be cheap. And if the large, I don't know, I didn't, conduct a survey or anything, but how many people have a full recycling bin, every 14 days to dump? I don't know.
that is a good example, because out where I'm at, in the condos, most of them are seniors, and some of them don't even put their recycle thing out every other week. I mean,
Right.
it's that small of an amount. So
Right.
if we're gonna go every week, they just drive around out there, basically, in a lot of areas. And then on the other hand, where there's young families in certain neighborhoods, it's just the opposite. And, I understand that, but we gotta
I would just
try
hate
and
to pay, I would hate to put down the road, opt for it's every week. You don't have to worry about is it week 1, week 2, or whatever. But to your point, Ken, if right now they just drove around, 2/3 of us weren't putting them out every other week, we're paying for a service we don't even need. Do we need to go to every week?
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm
if we
saying.
do need, I mean, says who? Is anybody? Like I said, I would like to see, the comparison to see what the cost involved would be.
Okay.
I don't know. I personally have never heard of anybody complaining that they want recycling more than once every other week.
I've seen it with the younger families.
Sure,
That
sure.
they're overfilling.
Right.
And then we see them all over the ground because they can't. They're
That's what I've
doing the
seen. I've
pyramid
seen those-
scheme.
I guess it depends on how much, pop or beer or soda or recyclables. Well, I mean,
Right.
if it's plain garbage, that's once a week, you can always, you can generally always get rid of that, but, if you go through 2 cases of soda every week or whatever, I don't know.
Point with that, if you look at the list of things that you're supposed to put in a recycle,
Right,
it's not supposed to be in a bag. It's
Right.
just supposed to be loose.
yep,
And there's only, I'm gonna say 5 things, Matt, that you actually recycle is in what we're doing. And I think a lot of people just pack it, I really do.
regular garbage?
Well, I know there's a lot of things that are not on that list that they consider recyclable that go into the recycle. So,
I know in some communities, you actually get a sticker put on, a warning, like, hey, we just dumped your regular garbage, and it's full of, bottles or cans, and next time it's $50, and they cite you.
Well,
I don't know, I mean, that'd be a nightmare to try to.
There's a lot of
who's
places
gonna
that
be the garbage police, I mean, how do you know, but,
I think there's a lot of places that do clear bags only too. So
yeah.
they can see.
So they can see what you're doing, yeah,
Mhm.
I did have in the proposal for a tagging system.
right.
So if that's not something if it's something we're interested in, it's currently in there, for them to leave it, that way they know. I mean, honestly, we don't get that many calls in the office about, inappropriate items in the or in the wheel carts. Yeah.
It's only if they can't pick it up.
There's a battery that actually started a truck on fire. That was the last one there. He said, hey, if you don't mind letting someone know, but.
We don't want that.
And that you can get rid of at the county highway shop twice a year.
yeah, and we might, whatever we decide, we might be better off mentioning that, you know what I mean? Along with what the county puts out, if we don't.
Yeah, we always try to make those available to everyone. Once we hear about the county's clean sweep, we try to get that out there. I think it's a good idea. I currently don't have it shown in here this way, but I think the biannual would be maybe something to consider as an alternate and pull that out separately, just so that we could see what it is. Again, the county does provide it. It's not too far from Elkhorn. Again, that's up to the council, but just a suggestion. One of the things that I had for bulk items too is tires. I currently have tires in here, and if we could educate, residents to take those items elsewhere, because again, I think at some point these collectors are going to start to say no to some of these items, including the liquid waste. I mean, they'll do anything to get a contract. That's basically what Susan told me, but eventually it's going to go away. So you offer it now, it's a lot harder to take it away, I would say the same thing with doing non-automated too, is that eventually like I said, the automated will probably be with the majority of what everybody's going with. And it also makes for a cleaner community too. They'll say that's their pitch too, is it? Yeah.
Have someone physically grabbing something. I mean, that's how they used to do it, and stuff would just blow all over.
It goes in.
Right,
Right.
so.
I mean, currently, the trade-off too, if we're going for doing recycling once a week, is currently in our contract, and it doesn't always work that great, but they're supposed to be picking up 2 items per week, a bulk. And right now, I'm proposing 2 in this RFP, but I'm considering changing it to 1 unless, again, the council decides otherwise. So, as far as cost goes, I'm saying that,
Per
So per week,
household.
somebody could put out 2 bulk items right now?
that, yes. Yeah.
Well, clearly
A
we
week.
don't need that.
No,
None of us do that.
no, that,
That doesn't sound like a good use of our money.
Every
I
week,
mean,
that's.
Even if, like you said, somebody new moves in, moving out or whatever, you put out, the couch, the chair, the whatever, 5 weeks in a row.
is everybody okay with once a month?
I am.
Yeah.
Again, they have an option to put out 2,
But they'd have
but
to
they would
pay
just,
for it.
but they would have to pay for it.
So it's not like you can't do it, it's just you'd have to.
Directly with the contractor.
And they still have to contact in advance.
Yes.
Or they just put it out?
No, it'd be, well, it would depend on the provider, but most of them just say it's gonna be the fourth, fourth week of collection or whatever of that month.
Okay,
I got you.
okay, yeah, okay. That would make more sense.
Then you don't have to call either.
Correct. Oh, I forgot to call.
Right.
And there it is sitting there.
Right. And if you pick the wrong week, then it's sitting for another month
Right.
with, rotting on the curb, which is not good.
Committee members, anything else to add? So,
I guess, could we get clarification?
Yeah.
Alderman Payson, you raised the issue of the fuel price, and that was a good question that we had about, under our current contract, obviously, you got, the council's aware that there's the, surcharge above certain diesel price. So Matt and I had the question about, well, either A, do you just get a price that's gonna cover whatever fuel is, but then if fuel is under that, are we overpaying? And so, I mean, the one advantage of having this fuel surcharge has been, at least, you could list that on the customer bill to explain why the bills are up, so they do at least know. But at the same time, obviously, that provides uncertainty for the customer. So we were looking for some guidance as to what the council's preference was on the fuel.
the thought, one, I remember voting for that and pushing that, because I wanted everybody to see it on their bill so they understand ramifications of decisions that everybody makes, is that when they're doing a contract, they're gonna lay out what it is. And then, because when we originally had it, they had a price, then we added the fuel surcharge later. Going into a new contract is understanding, okay, you're assuming what rate, and then does it go up, does it go down? Or do we drop the price and say, okay, today it's based on this, and do the whole RFP based on fuel surcharge? It's understanding how they're gonna do it.
I mean, as far as I know,
That makes
most
sense.
companies right now are doing the fuel surcharge. I mean, that seems to be kind of the industry standard, but.
I think if we list it the way that we do currently, with not having it in there, that we're gonna end up probably seeing in their proposal. But I see both sides of it. I mean, to get rid of the uncertainty, just to have it a flat rate, that way people aren't getting surprised by an increase, for a couple of months or whatever it is. But I think we could probably, in my opinion, keep it the way that it is now. I could certainly mention a fuel surcharge in there if they want to consider it, but I think we're gonna see it anyways, be my guess. That could be something that we could discuss at the pre-bid meeting too.
I assume that no matter what contract that's the full council, you're gonna wanna lock it in. Whether it's a 3-year, 5-year, 1-year, I mean, it's gonna be, this is it. 2024 through 27, this is the rates, whether it's fuel or pickups or bulk items or whatever.
Yeah, that's the way that we'll end up seeing it come back in this RFP.
Right.
And it's not necessarily, I was talking to Adam about this earlier today, it's
You have to bring yours down.
not necessarily about when we get proposals, it's gonna be a gamut of things that are gonna be in there that they'll talk about for service. But it could be about the price, but maybe there's something that really attracts us to another provider about something else about their bid, their attention to detail and making sure that stuff is picked up. But in the way that it's written in here now for each one of these bid forms, it does say, okay, what's the cost for what's the rate for 2024? What's the rate for 2025? So it does give them an opportunity to increase it by 5% because that's what they forecast for different things, like for fuel example. So.
Or they could offer a decrease. In the other part of the world where we're required to offer a 3% decrease every year versus an increase. It does happen in the real world, so.
Refresh my memory, right now, the fuel charge is locked in, or it's based on how much fuel prices cost?
Above $3. I got the existing contract here.
So
I
it's
think
the
they could
same, no matter what the diesel prices are?
No, I think that's why we have a fuel surcharge now, it's because it's fluctuating.
Okay, so some months we quote-unquote lose money, some months we gain money depending on the price of fuel,
Correct.
for lack of a better term.
Except for the fact that we have been forwarding those costs on to the customers on their bills. So the customers have been paying the extra cost of the fuel surcharge, yeah.
Right.
So the city hasn't been eating the cost of it.
I think it's good that we're only gonna go for 3 or 5 and not 8 like we currently have it. So if there is issues, we can change.
Yeah, we're not locked in.
Right.
Yeah, I agree that this was more of a nightmare for the last 4 years, It hasn't been good.
Well, and the other thing we can do is, as Adam knows, we can write the contract in such a way that even if it is a 3 or 5 or whatever we agree to, that within 30 days written notice, either party in writing can sever the contract. Make a sunset, what's called a sunset clause. So if things go haywire after year 1 of 4, we're not still going, well, we got 6 years to just tolerate it. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Matt does have that in the RFP.
Yeah, I saw it.
He'd have a 60-day, so.
60 day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which hopefully, I don't know if Alderman Payson, if that addresses your concern about the, I know you're concerned about the, performance and ensuring that there's some, recourse if the city's dissatisfied,
Yeah,
so.
well, part of the issue in the RFP, it talks about, that issue goes away if they do this or do that. I want to make sure that, so based on what we went through with the current contract and current supplier is basically we're stuck. And the more work that we would have to do, getting Ward involved and so on and so forth, I want to make it more of understanding that there's a penalty, not necessarily going to that point, but, demerit points or some system like that. Look, you make this many mistakes, yes, you rectified it, but hey, we're not going to forget this. And, throughout the performance of the contract, if they keep having demerit points, then we got to kick them out and get somebody else or something like that. Just making sure that they're being held accountable beyond just saying, hey, we're going to cancel the contract after, we're going to give you 60 days. And that's a lot of work. Look at the other things that we're dealing with now with other contracts where people weren't performing the work that we have to do with that. So before getting to that point, look, we've been sitting here talking for a half hour on this. I know Matt has dumped a lot of time into this to get all this together and working with all the colleagues. So not necessarily having to throw a supplier out necessarily, but having a demerit point system or something like that, that we can penalize them without having to remove the supplier. Removing a supplier is like terminating someone. That is like the last of the last. You don't want to do that until you absolutely have to, unless early. Now, if the contract's over, then that's a different story. But having that in advance or having that knowing going into there, that, if you don't perform, it's no different than a discipline at work. You're going to get a verbal warning, you're going to get a written warning, then you're going to get slapped in the hand, then you're going to get suspended, then adios, you're out of here. My view, it's been a long day at work. So. Anything else? So what do we need to? Oh, Frank, come on up. You got to be on, you got.
I got like 4 minutes.
Yeah, you got to come up to the mic though.
That's not enough time.
We can start the council meeting a little late because the way the agenda was noticed, so you can either use the podium or please use the microphone at the table. Thank you.
65-gallon tote in this package, because I didn't see it.
No, it's not.
We originally had this contract, I don't know, 5 years ago or whatever. The 96-gallon quote totes were given to everybody. You were talking about all those people at Belinsky. I personally don't want a 96-gallon tote. I want a 65. Will we get a choice? Or will it be just wake up one morning and the 2 96 gallons are in your driveway on January 1st of '24?
I think from hearing from the council that they would like to see an option for a 65-gallon tote.
So will some type of go out with, in your power and light bill the month before and say, hey, can, you got a choice, this is what's going on? Because last time it was just thrown in everybody's faces with these huge totes, and I don't want no huge tote.
Yeah, once a contractor is selected, we'll have to figure out a way to get that
Because
information
it could
out.
go out in the, Elkhorn Power and Light bill in November. I'm going to reiterate what Gary, Alderman Payson said. Almost every single week during the collection, they park in front of my house and they dump the garbage into the truck. And windy days, snowy days, garbage goes everywhere. The guys don't get out and pick it up. Who picks it up? Frank Boggs. We had one incident during the summer that there was broken glass all over the street. And there is probably 20 people that walk their dogs past my house every single day. And I'm pretty sure you were contacted by several residents to send the street sweeper out there, to sweep that street because there was broken glass and the people didn't want dogs walking on the glass. So I think maybe I didn't see nothing in here where I guess they can just dump it wherever they want to dump it in front of whoever's house, and whatever stuff is left, that's up to the person who lives there. I don't know. I mean, I've been picking up gallon milk jugs, newspaper, cardboard boxes, and it gets sold after, 5 years. I think there was something talked about the fuel issue with the cost of diesel fuel into this contract.
Yeah, the fuel
On
surcharge.
page 8 of your proposal here, it says the basic price for each year shall also include weekly collection of garbage from city-owned trash receptacles located in this historic downtown vicinity from South Broad Street to Wright Street and from Geneva Street to Court Street. There are a total of 23 trash receptacles. Do you know how long it takes a guy to do that every single week?
No, I don't.
Half hour? 45 minutes? Every week? 52 weeks? That's a lot of fuel that garbage truck is sitting there while he gets out, takes the garbage out of those receptacles, throws it, and goes back up there.
Is everybody aware of what the receptacles that Frank's referring to?
Yeah.
The ones downtown? Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I see him every week, and he's not
So you-
dilly-dallying
you-
around out there doing it. I watch him do it downtown, because I
Yeah.
work downtown.
Yeah.
He's not out there goofing around, and he's
Well,
not
no,
sitting
but,
there. He goes from
it
one,
doesn't take
does
5
it, and
minutes
he
to
goes,
do,
does the other one, so.
Ron, it don't take 5 minutes to do the whole city. It takes longer than 5 minutes. So if you're paying for diesel fuel, that truck is sitting there running while the guy does the whole thing. So what I'm just suggesting is, can't the city do that? To save fuel, so that guy don't have to stop there and run that truck? Because it does it once a week. For 52 weeks, that's a lot of fuel that truck is using that we're being paid, that we have to pay for. We could get a dumpster down by the compost pile. The city throws the stuff in there, and they just pick that up once a week, or once a month. Just a suggestion. I think you and I talked about this electronic waste. I use the service that the county provides. And like you said that, we put this in this contract, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, the city, they can't do this. Now you're taking it back.
Yeah, I think I was more or less, like, after our contract terms are over, when we renegotiate a new contract, at some point, that service could go away, to where the contractors no longer are looking to pick it up. But I could be wrong on that, too. That's just kind of
And
what
are
Susan
you
had.
sure that the county does it twice a year? I thought the county did it once a year.
I thought it was a clean sweep twice a year, but I could be mistaken on that. I'd have to
Else,
check.
no?
I thought it was spring and fall.
When I worked for the county, it was twice a year. It may have gone to once a year, but I know it's at least once a year, October and I want to say June, May.
No,
May?
well, last time I went, I think it was like September, October. And I didn't see one in like in April or May or so. I personally would probably like to see it stay, to give the people of the city of Elkhorn the option. If you can't get out to the county, you can always, and don't have it on the same weekend that the county has it. You know?
Right.
Yeah. One more other. No, that was it. That's all I had.
Your review, Frank.
Huh?
I appreciate your review.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Okay. Anything else from the committee? Okay, motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.